What a beautiful ball. Now it's Cristiano Ronaldo with a chance maybe to seal it, and he has taken it. Lahm in all kinds of space. Lahm, Muller through. Muller could be embarrassing. It's three. Tony Kroos. Olivier Giroud. Barkley's found Klein with a speedy burst, and that's terrific from Vardy. Oh, what a goal by Jamie Vardy.
Hello and a very warm welcome for the final time to #TFHP Euros. It's the Football Hipsters podcast. I am your host, Kris, and yes, I've just about got over it. I'm joined by only two of the four regulars tonight because for reasons I'll explain shortly. But first of all, I'll introduce who I have got. I've got Tom. Evening, sir.
Sup?
And I've got Drew. Good evening to you, sir.
You've got to stop this sup thing. It's driving me nuts. But
It's stuck now, mate. Stuck.
I know, it's awful.
And 1 week, Drew, I'm going to introduce you first just to throw you completely off. I think that's what
all right. I guess it'll work.
Right, now we should just explain we're kind of late and we're missing a couple. We did record a pod ready for last night and we went to put it up and then we had a couple of technical issues and unfortunately in the wonderful world we live in we lost our recording. So it happens to the best and indeed the worst. So unfortunately we lost last night's episode, so we're going to try and go again, but that does sadly mean that we can't have John tonight or Ross. John has had some minor surgery today. He will be returning as Georgette for next season. I'm told the operation went well, so that's good news. No, he's absolutely fine, but he's had some wisdom teeth work done today, so he is not able to speak. But I know he's waving, so hi, John. And Ross has got family commitments tonight, so I've got some notes written down for them when we come to sort of picking out our bits and bobs from the tournament. But let's go with what we have got, shall we? So, Tom, let's start with you then. We're 24 hours removed from the final, which, of course, unless you've been living under a rock inside an air raid shelter, you would know that Portugal upset all the odds and beat the host France 1-0, and they are indeed European champions. So, what did you make of the final, and what was your overall thoughts on Portugal as winners?
Well, it's interesting, obviously, because we recorded the pod last night and I said what I said. But now you have like a day and you sit back and you got time to reflect on it and you think, and I thought that France were disappointing, but that after I've gone back and I've looked at it a bit more, they dominated the game more than I thought they had initially. But they simply didn't take their chances and Portugal defended very well. That is the reason why Portugal have won this tournament. It's because of their defence. With the odd goals from Ronaldo, obviously him going off in 25 minutes we'll come on to in a bit, I'm sure, which in my opinion was probably beneficial to them. But France, as I say, were just so toothless. Griezmann had an off day, and it's, as I think you mentioned it when we recorded last night, you said he's earned an off day because he's been so on for most of the majority of the tournament so far that he's just a bit burned out, and it certainly looked that way. Matuidi had a good game for France. He was probably one of their best players. Sissoko had a great game as well. But they just didn't have their cutting edge. That Giroud wasn't on form, and Gignac, when he came on, obviously hit the post, but he's not really offered anything this entire tournament, and that's certainly carried on into the final. But you just have to give credit to Portugal with Eder coming on. I mean, I said it weeks ago, or games ago, weeks ago. I've only been here 3 weeks, but that Eder is their only striker they have, and he's not starting, and it shows the quality that they think he has. If they're not starting the only striker they really have, but he came on and he scored a good goal from outside the box, good connection, good finish, and Lloris didn't have a chance. So it's fine lines that win these tournaments, and that's Portugal have got it for them.
Yeah, they have indeed. And Drew, how are we going to look back on Portugal? As Tom said, we'll touch on all the bits and bobs that went into the game in a minute. But overall, I mean, this is a side that have won one game, in 90 minutes. They've only won technically 2 games over the course of the tournament. I mean, how do we look back and think, well, this is just Greece 2.0? I mean, they've got the manager that did it with Greece at the helm. So how do you think they'll be remembered when we look back in a couple of years' time?
I don't think it'll be too fondly. I mean, honestly, they have far more attacking talent than what Greece had in 2004, even though Greece had maybe a few players who were notable for their attacking ability. But Portugal do have the likes of Nani, Ronaldo, two youngsters, and Andre Gomez and João Mario, and then even Ronaldo Sanchez, who were good going forward, and Quaresma off the bench. So they had the talent, but a lot of people were talking about Fernando Santos, how his philosophy coming in as manager during qualifying, that he wanted to really have a compact, solidified defense first, and then worry about scoring goals. And that was reflected in the fact that I think they only scored 10 or 11 goals in the 7 qualifying matches where he was at the helm. And I think he thought it worked enough to bring that mentality into the tournament, where so many sides can counterattack very, very well. And we did see that throughout the tournament. So maybe the way he wanted to set a Portugal team up who do have quality players in the final third, but he was worried about limiting the amount of scoring chances at the other end first, and then being one of those sides where hopefully they will take their chances throughout the tournament. And to be fair, they weren't brilliant all tournament. They 5 draws out of their 7 matches, only 2 wins, only 1 in 90 minutes. But to be fair to them, they did have quite a few chances in the tournament, and they could be at fault for enough. Ronaldo had I can't remember how many shots in the group stage. I think he was pushing, let alone Nani and a few other people. So it's not that they didn't create enough, but I think it did show that they were still very reliant on Ronaldo in a lot of key areas, and I'm sure we'll discuss that more later because we have discussed it amongst ourselves a number of times. So overall, no one will say that the best team won the tournament, and honestly, with Portugal finishing third in Group F behind Hungary and Iceland, you would imagine that if this was any other Euro that wasn't this one, Portugal wouldn't even made it out of the group stage, and yet they went on to win the tournament. So you'd be hard pressed to find someone who would say that Portugal even deserved to be lifting the trophy, and certainly on the balance of playing the final, that France deserved to win. They created all the chances. They were largely dominant throughout the course of the match, but full credit to Portugal for kicking on into another gear when Ronaldo went uninjured. But it's difficult to think that people will be very, very positive about Portugal actually winning when you have to be honest with they probably didn't deserve it.
Yeah, all very, very fair points. And Tom, Drew's sort of queued you up a little bit there with the Ronaldo injury. It was probably the big flashpoint early on in the game. Obviously, he was in tears. He had a moth on his face. Etc. That moth, I think he's got about 100 Twitter accounts by now. But Marty, we'll call him. Yeah, indeed. But it's a bit of a tough one because he divides opinions. I freely admit I don't like the guy personally. That's not to say I don't respect his ability, because you have to. But was it almost a bit bittersweet? Because I've seen a lot of the celebrations today, and he's back to his usual preening self, isn't he? It's front and centre. I know he's the captain, but him on the podium, him doing all the speeches, him doing all the sort of winks to the crowd. So. What did you make of the whole situation, and was there an argument that when he went off, Portugal actually improved as a side, as a team?
I think I'll start with that and say that I think we said it weeks ago and I brought up the fact that there was a tweet asking if Portugal didn't have Ronaldo and Wales didn't have Bale, who would win, and I said that Portugal without Ronaldo would beat Wales with Bale, because they become a team, and there's not so much that focus to go through them. I mean, Drew, you asked me the question last night when we did the fake recording. If the team feel like they have to go through him, and is that Ronaldo that's telling them to do that, or is it just a more of indirect effect? I think it's more indirect. I think it's just because the reputation he has, the quality they know and we know that he has, they feel pressured to pass the ball and go through him as much as they can. But teams can put 2 or 3 men on him and shut Portugal down. So if you don't have Ronaldo in there, they all of a sudden the opposition have a lot more individuals to worry about, and they don't really know who to pinpoint in the team, because when you think of Portugal, you think of Cristiano Ronaldo. Nani's had a good tournament. Quaresma came on in the final, did excellently well, and I think that at the end of the day, you still have to say that before he was injured and in all their other rounds, he's been a huge factor in getting them to the final. The goals that he's brought, the chances he's created, and just the effect he has on the pitch is key for them. So it's it's a fine line when you balance it up between thinking, if Ronaldo's not there, are they a better team? But when they've got this world-class player who's scored over 500 whatever goals, you want that guy on your team. So it's a tricky one, but I think you have to look at the final and say they won it. So I think they're glad he walked off. But on the point that he's making all the attention, whatever. My thing is on that he's the captain and he's the one who should raise the trophy. It is in his nature to be the centre of attention, but at the end of the day, all the Portugal fans love him for who he is. I mean, he's a hero in their land, and respect to him for that. But I think, and from what I've known, what I've heard from other people, I think I was listening to the Football Ramble, and it was Luke that was saying that he knows people who've spoken to Ronaldo, and he's actually a stand-up guy when he's like not create the centre of attention in the media. So I think it's more of an egotistical football dilemma than an actual personal issue.
Yeah, it's true. People can be very different on screen, off screen. I mean, you should see the way Ross is off pod. I mean, he's
a massive.
Seriously, he throws his weight around. He demands tea brought to him. He has servants. It's awful. Drew, just touching on the Ronaldo thing again, just briefly for a minute. Some people criticised Dimitri Payet's challenge, said that he was deliberately targeted. He went after him, and I've got to be honest, I've never had so much nonsense in all my life. It's just a badly timed challenge, and one of those things. Do you agree, or maybe do you sit on the side of the argument that it was sort of a deliberate tactic to kick him off the ball?
I do not hide my opinion when it comes to Ronaldo fanboys. I feel as though, injuries are going to happen in a national tournament. I don't agree I don't think the challenge was soft by any means. I feel like, it was booking worthy, but I don't think Payet's the type of person to go out and try to intentionally injure someone. And honestly, in a final, I don't think most people are going to go out and try to intentionally injure you unless you're, Nigel de Jong, for example. But no, I don't put any weight behind the fact that I think he went out and tried to pull him out of the match. I think it was just an unfortunate, he went in hard and they collided, specifically at the knee, and Ronaldo's had issues with that in the past, and I think it just sort of spiraled from there, but I don't think he intentionally set out to hurt somebody. I don't see him as that kind of player. I don't see Deschamps as that kind of manager to go out and tell a player to do that, and if it turns out that he actually did, I think Deschamps would have maybe thrown the book at him, but none of that's come out. I feel like it was just unfortunate. So I think that's kind of where it begins and ends with me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Totally with you. I think it's just one of those things, and it happens. And John made the point last night, and I'll echo it again today. One thing you would say is Ronaldo was, whether it was to get the attention back on him or not, open to debate, but he was very sort of audibly and visibly geeing up his teammates, particularly in extra time. And I think he forced Rafa Guerreiro back onto the pitch when he could barely walk. And it was very clear that he was trying to do everything he could to keep the team motivated. And ultimately, they came out on top. And I think we should give, you can briefly touch on this, Tom, we should give a little bit of love to Portugal's defence. I mean, I thought Rafa Guerreiro was the best player on the pitch last night, but very close behind was Pepe, who's been one of the best players in the tournament, in fairness to him, as he divides opinion himself. And then in front of that, your Renato Sanchez's, your João Mario's, your William Carvalho, who's quietly very effective as well. Cedric Suarez, who came in halfway through, and the goalkeeper, of course, Rui Patricio. So should give a little bit of credit to Portugal defensively as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can go on Guerrero all day. He was excellent. You could argue he should have been taking all the free kicks in the whole tournament. They might have scored a few more goals if he'd have been on it, because the one he took in the final was very close to going in, even though it shouldn't have been a penalty, which is laughable that decision got made. But Pepe's been a rock. It was huge for him to be playing in the final. We were discussing it after the semi-final, when I asked about whether he's going to be fit or not, and he hadn't trained on that day, and it was becoming worrying, but he passed the fitness test and made it, and that's good. Font's been a revelation since coming in, and he's been doing excellently. And then for me, the unsung hero has been Cedric on the right hand side. He came in during the knockout rounds. Vieirinha started all of the group games, and he's just a bit more of a balanced fullback than what Vieirinha is. He brings both offence and defensive duties, so he's been solid for them. And the one for me though is he's got to be Rui Patricio, who we said at the start of the tournament that we thought Lopez of Lyon should be playing, and I think he's at Sporting, isn't he, Rui?
He is indeed, yes.
Yes, and so he's he's been doing decent for them, but I mean, he wasn't the most highly rated of the two for us anyway. I don't think. But he's been an absolute rock. He had a couple of mistakes in the group stage, but since they reached the knockout rounds, he's been solid, and obviously did well in the penalty shootout they had as well. So it's a credit to them. And on William Carvalho, he got a lot of criticism before the tournament started during the season that when he was linked to some of the biggest clubs in the world, and people watched him against the likes of Chelsea in the Champions League when he had an absolute mare. He seems to have come on a lot more since then, and people made the point that Wales were without Ramsey in the semi-final. And obviously Portugal were without William Carvalho, but the depth they had to bring in Danilo really helped them out in that as well. So they have a team. I think that's what you got to say now about Portugal, is that they do have a team behind Ronaldo now, and it's the reason they have got as far as they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it can only be one winner at the end of the day, and that was Portugal. But for every winner, Drew, there has to be a loser, and unfortunately on this occasion, from my point of view, it was the French, who, as you touched on earlier on, probably were the better side for long periods of the game, but never really looked like they were in first gear, never really looked like they were going to push for that goal that they craved until they were behind from Eder's strike. So how do you, we'll touch on Deschamps in a minute, but how do you sort of evaluate France in this tournament? Because it's all too quick to forget that they weren't great in the opening round. So is there a worry for you there, or are you confident that the next generation will sort of help them recover from this disappointment?
I think it really all depends on, I guess, a few factors, but namely moving forward into the friendlies and then into World Cup qualifying. The French team from now on really has to be picked on merit and merit alone. I think there are a few additions into the team, and I know a lot of us agreed that players were left out that shouldn't have been, and players were included that shouldn't have been in the team. I think Andre-Pierre Gignac was one of them. I feel like everyone would agree, whether it's with us on the pod or not, that it was criminal that Alexandre Lacazette was left out of the team at the expense of Gignac, who, even though he's prolific in the Mexican League, with all due respect, it's the Mexican League, and Lacazette's one of the most sought-after strikers in Europe, who has an excellent goal record the past couple of years, and people would say he was arguably France's best forward, and he wasn't even at the tournament. So I think that's one factor. I feel, for me, management is key in international tournaments, where they sometimes often select things that they're familiar with and things that they prefer, but it's not often the best choice. And we saw that a few times from Jürgen Löw with Germany as well, and it came back to bite them in certain circumstances. So, but in regards to France, I think for the majority of the tournament, they certainly weren't the best team overall in the tournament, and I think we only saw the best from them in little bunches. I think the 5-2 jubbing of Iceland was an example of how good they can be, because we saw how well Iceland defended for the entirety of the tournament, but France put 5 past them. So I think in scenarios like that, you see the best. But did they get off to a rocky start in the group? They weren't overly impressive in the group stage on the whole. And then certainly in the final, I don't think they're all that great either. I thought they did create some chances, but I know we touched on it last night in the faux taping, as Tom put it. But I genuinely feel like France went into this match incredibly overconfident, because, again, no one has been impressed with Portugal. Everyone felt like Portugal had no business being in the final, let alone the semifinal, probably let alone the quarterfinal. And I feel like that sort of seeped into their mindset, and you kind of almost saw it. I brought up last night where some of the chances they took were very half-hearted efforts, especially that Griezmann header that he had. If that was any other match in this tournament, you would bet your house that Griezmann puts that away. But even the way he rose to the header and sort of his effort at goal was almost like he was doing it in a half-assed manner. And you have to wonder if that's just maybe one of those things where he was saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'll get another chance. This is fine. Does it matter that I missed it?" Because he didn't look that disappointed that he missed the chance in the first place. And I think that's a different mentality that you'd have seen from French players in a different scenario against a different team. If this was against Germany, they may have been that bummed because they would have expected that high quality chance to be few and far between. But against the Portugal side that people aren't rating, then they would have maybe went in with a different mentality of, "Oh, don't worry, I'll get another one." I feel like France's downfall in this match in particular, I thought, was overconfidence. And I think that's something that people aren't talking about enough of. And I think it shouldn't, I think it should be discussed way more than it has been, for sure, at least for me. So moving forward, I think for France, it's got to be about picking the right players who are in form. It can't be about personal bias for the manager. I feel like that was a big issue for France. This tournament in particular, I think moving forward, that's got to be highlighted. And they also have to understand that even if they're a favorite, then they have to put in the performance required of a favorite. They can't just feel like results are going to be gifted to them. We see that from a lot of teams at club level, Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Bayern, Real. They have that mentality sometimes, and it does come back to bite them. And so France has to sort of dissuade themselves from getting involved in that sort of thinking as well.
I agree. Yeah, some excellent points. And again, we touched on a few things last night. And again, just to sort of mention that a few things that I noticed, the sort of the tactical element, I think was poor last night. I think Deschamps got quite a few things wrong on the night. I thought the substitutions were poor. Dimitri Payet was very, very underwhelming for me. I made the point last night that, in my opinion, a lot of people won't agree with this, but in my opinion, it's why he's a star for West Ham, but not potentially a well-beating superstar, because for me, he just goes missing too much in big games. It wasn't Griezmann's night, which Tom touched on earlier on, and as we said earlier, that happens. You can't rely on one player every time, and Paul Pogba playing deep was, it was an experiment that worked in previous rounds, but it didn't work in this game, and more importantly, they didn't push him forward when the chance came. They just didn't push him on. And we also touched on the fullbacks. I think Evra and Sagna. I think France have got to be looking to move those aside now and go with the next generation, the Corchillas, the Luka Deans, the Kazawas, the Sidibis, even the Brian Darbos. I just think they need to be looking at a different option moving forwards, and I think the future is secure for France. I think they'll be fine long term. We touched on the centre backs, sort of missing Varane and Sacco was a huge miss, and when you've got Kurt Zouma out long term injured as well, the future's quite bright there. And giving a nudge to the future again, Aymeric Laporte is somebody Tom knows well. And also the option of Clement Lenglet, who's not well known, I don't think, but we're a Hipsters podcast, so I'll name drop him. Playing for Nancy, he's going to be a really, really big star in the future. So I think all the tools are there for France to bounce back from this, but it'll be interesting to see how. And Deschamps obviously very disappointed today, and it would appear he is going to stick around. We'll see if that does happen. There's a lot of talk today, but it seems as though he will be sticking around. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. One other thing I just want to bring up on France before we do move on, why they put all their attacks down the right-hand side. I think they had 4 attacks, down the left-hand side. They had 4 attacks in the last 2 or 3 minutes of extra time when Rafael Guerreiro couldn't run and Portugal had Ricardo Quaresma at left back, and they instead attacked down the opposite wing. Unforgivable game management, that for me, as a very low class manager. But I would be absolutely livid if my team didn't take advantage of that. But still, but we should, as I say, we'll give a tip of the hat to Portugal. Whether they deserve it or not is kind of irrelevant, really. They've got the trophy. They are the European champions. So that's the final done and dusted. Now we are just going to leave you with something from the tournament from all of us, because we feel like we should sort of give you guys a little flavour of how we thought. So we came up with a couple of categories about certain moments of the tournament that people enjoyed. So I'm going to give these to the guys sort of together, as it were. So there was 5 different categories. So Tom, I'll start with you. We went with these categories. Your goal of the tournament, first of all?
It's the Modric one where it drops out of the sky from about 1,000,000 miles in the air, and he somehow volleys it first time, and it loops into the bottom left-hand corner. Argument the keeper could have done better, but the technique to get out of the sky perfectly was excellent. Yeah,
a bit special. And your team of the tournament?
Team of the tournament. I actually changed my mind from yesterday, and I'm going to go for Iceland just because they surprised everybody. So
yeah, fair shout. Match that you enjoyed the most?
Match, I said I related to this to the performance of the tournament, and I'd have to go with Croatia against Spain. Croatia, I've never seen a team other than the game next for Spain against Italy, where a team, but Croatia in particular, just bossed them and just knew exactly how to play against them, and it worked perfectly.
Good shout. And your moment of the tournament?
Moment. I like the Iceland clap, but I loved, in terms of a moment, Paille's first goal in the first game. That was the perfect way to open the tournament.
Bit special. And finally, your player of the tournament overall.
Aaron Ramsey has to be for me for Wales. Not because of an Arsenal bias whatsoever. I promise, honestly. But he was just the energy he brought for Wales. The absence of him in the semi-final was so clear to see, and he's become a revelation after a reasonably poor season at Arsenal. I think he's definitely set himself up brilliantly for the next one.
Lovely job. So same to you then, Drew. Let's go in a different order, shall we? Who was your team of the tournament?
I'm also going to go with a team not surprised. I'm going to say Hungary, because no one gave them a chance in hell of even getting out of the group in any of the three places. Many people thought they probably didn't even deserve to be in the tournament. So I think they did brilliantly to actually top a group with a dark horse and the eventual champion. So I'm going to go Hungary.
Good. What about your goal of the tournament?
It's got to be Shaqiri. I think that Modric's volley was excellent, but to pull off a bicycle kick from that distance, I think it's rare in football. So I'll go with that.
Super. Did you have a favourite player of the tournament?
Ramsey deserves consideration. I thought also Kevin De Bruyne I thought was excellent. Griezmann, obviously, because of how he arrived on the stage as a really incredible goal scorer. But I'm going to go with Toni Kroos, because the way he orchestrated that Germany midfield and then moving forward into the final third, I thought was almost kind of a throwback to a Xavi or an Iniesta type performance in Spain's recent heyday. So I'm going to go with Toni Kroos.
Fair shout. And your moment, or actually no, give us your match of the tournament first before your moment.
I mentioned it just before. I think France 5-2 against Iceland. Everyone was saying after this performance that this is what France can do, and that they arrived, and putting 5 goals past one of the most stout defensive units of the tournament, I thought was brilliant to see. I thought France really turned up that day. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't turn up again, but I'd go with that for a match. I thought it was very entertaining.
Yeah, shout. And what about the moment sort of that got it all for you?
Freaking Tom already took it from last night. That was the Pyatt winner. But he was spot on. I thought opening match of the tournament, host nation needed a pickup, and a player who wanted to reintroduce himself to the national team did it in a way that he could only have dreamt of, and he scored a brilliant goal. So the Pyatt winner for me also have to be that moment.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I'll in the absence of John and the absence of Ross, I'll give you their answers as well. So Ross went for Hamsik as his goal of the tournament in the early stages. His game of the tournament was Hungary-Portugal. Remember that 3-3 thriller, a bit mental. Player was Lovrencic of Hungary, which was a real hipster choice there, like that. His team of the tournament were Wales. And his moment was Ireland beating Italy, which was a bit special. And we should give a little nod to Ross as well, because in his absence, he did say this tournament we'd see a new winner. So ITK Ross, or ITK Bramble is what we're now naming him. So well done to Ross. And John's answers, well, he went with Raja Nainggolan's wonder strike against Wales. His team of the tournament were Wales. Match of the tournament, Italy, Spain. No surprises there. Player of the tournament, Bonucci, shocker. And moment of the tournament, I like this one in particular, Gabriel Corrali and his joggers, and in particular that no-look pass that he executed, or just about executed, whichever way you want to look at it. They were all some fine moments. From a personal standpoint, I have real issues doing this because I've really struggled with these moments and God knows what else, but I would have to say Wales are probably going to be my team of the tournament. The match was the Croatia-Spain game, same as Tom. That was a game I particularly enjoyed. Moment, the Moth's got to be up there. I'm not going to lie. The moment's a really tough one because there were some quite amazing moments, in fairness, but probably those celebrations when Wales went through, I think would have to be up there. What other ones have we got here? The goal of the tournament. See, this is another tricky one for me. I thought of one last night and it's gone. I went with Shaqiri last night, but there was another goal that popped into my head and it's completely gone. So I'll have to go with Shaqiri, but it's a good piece of technical skill for that one. So good shout, Drew. And as far as player of the tournament, again, really, really torn on this one because there were so many outstanding performances. Oh, I'm probably actually going to go. Am I going to go with John? I was really impressed with Bonucci. I did also really enjoy watching Rafa Guerrero as a particular fan of his myself. So for that, I'm going to go for Harry Kane. Right, so let's move on to let's just move on to a little bit of a sum up of the tournament from us all. Then, just a brief sentence. What do you think the sort of the tournament as a whole gave us? What do you think we'll sort of look back and think? And also, I want to get your views very briefly on how you felt the new format went. So, Tom, what's going to be your overall thoughts?
Well, I thought the officiating was good. I said that last night when we did our fake record. But I mean, other than the last game in the final, Clattenburg had a bit of a mare. But it wasn't the best of tournaments in terms of quality. But I thought that what Ross said about having a new winner was spot on, and there was a lot of teams in the tournament surprised, and that was quite enjoyable and probably the most enjoyable part of it to watch. I'm sure for you, watching England crumble was another one. So yeah, we'll go with that.
Well, it was funny, but let's be honest, it wasn't exactly unpredictable, was it? I think we all saw it coming slightly. But Drew, what sort of things do you look back on, and how did you feel this whole new tournament went with the extra teams? I know Platini was very heavily booed when his picture came up on the big screen last night. It was quite awkward. But did you feel that style of the tournament worked? And is there anything that you'll really look back on and smile about this tournament?
I mean, I absolutely liked it, simply just because without the new format, you wouldn't have gotten, Northern Ireland and Ireland into the round of 16, and it gave them something to play for. Usually, in the normal tournament format, the first two matches in the group stage usually decide who goes through. But even up until the last day, Albania, who lost their first two group matches, they beat Romania in the third match, and they even had a chance of getting to the round of 16 because they won that third match, and they were going to go through as a third place team up until I think the Irish win. So, but then Ireland knew that, and they had something to play for as well going into the last day in that last match. So I think if you take out the new format, you don't get instances like that. And if you take out the new format, you don't have Portugal as a new winner of the European Championship. So even though I don't think they deserved it, it allowed them to redeem themselves a little bit moving forward, because I think they were much better in the knockout stage than they actually were in the group stage. But you don't get that if you have the new form, if you don't have the new format. So I did like it. And I guess to sum up the tournament for me, I always think tactically. So for me, I like the differences that you would see between teams who were dominant in possession and teams who knew how to defend and counter. I think there was a lot of examples of the merits of both, and sort of the tactical tinkering that both sets of managers will have to go through to sort of get the result out of it. And then because of that, you would get matches like that Croatia performance, how they did defend so well and they did counterattack well when they could have, and things like that. So for me, that for me sort of sums up the tournament also, but how a lot of the big teams failed, and I like seeing upsets. So it's always nice to see when the traditional powerhouses sort of stumble a bit, despite me being a supporter of Germany.
Yeah, tell me about it. And this tournament, of course, as you say, we saw the birth of extra games. We saw the births of nations, arguably. We saw the end of Zlatan, of course, which is a shame. We saw some sort of highly fancied teams really fall apart. I think of sort of Austria and that, Czech Republic. I think we're pretty poor. Russia, of course, were terrible. England, I think, underachieved by the standards they would have set themselves. And I don't know about you guys. I'm struggling to think of too many young players that really come out of this tournament with an enhanced reputation. I think sort of Renato Sanchez, Joshua Kimmich, maybe.
I just wrote an article about this. I have a list right next to me. If you like.
Oh well, go on then. Yeah, give us some because I did.
Well,
maybe there was more. Emre Moore is another one I think of, but
this
not many.
We didn't even talk about this last time, so that's actually good. I know you appreciate this. I thought Rafa Guerreiro, on form through this tournament, has to be up there as one of the top 5 or 6 left backs in Europe based off of his performance in this tournament. And the fact he's going to Dortmund this summer, or he's completed the move, now he'll be in a higher standard of league and he'll be getting Champions League. So it'll be interesting to see his development. But certainly Renato Sanchez, I thought Joshua Kimmich was awesome. I thought Draxler put in a good performance for the national team for once in his first real test. I thought he was wasteful, but I thought Milik proved that he was a good little player. I thought Kleinheisler, who doesn't play at club level for Werder Bremen, I thought he had a very excellent tournament. And then you could also give shouts to Bartosz Kapuszka, Alessandro Schopf, Ozan Tufan, Arlind Ayeti, and Elside Haijer. I thought for Albania, I thought both of those guys were quietly very, very, very good at the back. And then, of course, Kingsley Coman and Samuel Umtiti, so players like that. I thought there were maybe 12 or 13 young players who you couldn't class them as a lot of them as superstars, but I think they might be viewed as better than they were coming into the tournament because now people got to see them at a higher standard in a major tournament. So
yeah, kind of kills my argument a bit there, doesn't it? Sorry, I just
John can't speak. I had to piss on the cornflakes this time.
You did. In fairness, I think you're right. There was some good young performances. I guess you think back to other tournaments and you think of like stars being born, and just in this one, right. I didn't feel. But then I suppose if you look back at this tournament as a whole, I think we can all maybe sit here and say we've loved watching it because we are football hipsters, of course. But I don't think I'm going to look back at this Euro 2016 in 20 years and go, well, that was a stellar tournament. There were more poor games than there were good games. And the one downside, I think, to expanding this tournament, I'm a fan of more teams. I mean, I'd have 100 teams in every summer, but I think the one downside was that teams knew coming into this tournament that they could legitimately get out of a group with 3 draws and they could sit deep and they could, to basically do what Portugal have done. And I think that's the downside. And of course, the draw, when you got arguably, Italy, Spain and Germany, France, those games should have been in the semi-finals, not the earlier stages. So that's disappointing. Although, of course, Germany, France was a semi-final, but you know what I mean. So that side of the draw. But
just quickly on Drew's youngster point, I think we have to give a shout to Bellerin. I thought was excellent on the bench. On the bench
naturally, yeah.
And Sal was. Oh no, wait, he didn't get picked. So yeah, two good youngsters there.
Yes. Enough said. I think it's fair to say. Enough said. And of course, if anyone is looking for a striker who can turn the entire Belgian defence with one flick, I've just remembered my favourite goal of the tournament is actually Hal Robson-Carnew's.
Oh, yeah, that's a very fair shout, honestly.
Yeah, I mean that to do that. Oh, what a goal! I mean, just to do that in that position.
He's so bad.
Oh, well, that's the thing. I mean, he's been, average at best for Reading, but look out, Real Madrid, he's on the way. Well, there we go. Right. Before we leave you, because as I say, this is the end. This is the end, boys and girls. I hope we've entertained you throughout the summer. I think I speak for all of my panelists when I say we've earned this break. We've put in a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of sweat and tears. Oh God, it's emotional. But no, in all seriousness, we have put a lot of effort into these. So hopefully you have enjoyed them. We do have an interview up to keep you happy if you haven't already listened. So Tom, do you want to give everyone a little nudge on that interview that's up with you now?
I interviewed the Spanish specialist Graham Hunter. Really, really cool guy. Listening to how he went from being an Aberdeen fan to living in Spain and what he likes about Spanish football. And then we covered about the Spanish team and the disappointment of the tournament. And even though it's happened now, we did do a little preview for the final, and you can see how mystic Graham is also in comparison to Ross. So yes, very interesting. Go check it out.
Yes, definitely worth a listen. And of course, you can go and listen to all of our old interviews throughout the season. They're all still quite relevant and quite current. And there's also one with Simon Collins about Leicester's win in the Premier League that we did a special. So you can keep yourselves entertained throughout the summer. Somebody else who's going to keep themselves entertained over the summer is we have the results of the Fantasy Football League, and we have a winner. Jabroni Ellsbury, the man who tweeted, I forget his Twitter hashtag, his handle, I'll have to find that, but he won it, 427 points. He won it by just 4 points from Sean Barrett. And then just behind them in third place was Global Bro Sports, which it sounds like a franchise. Sounds like an MLS team, that.
Jabroni's handle is at Camostinho.
Fantastic. There you go, Camostinho. And was it Tom 8th in the world or something ridiculous?
Yeah, he said to me he was 8th in the world. That's what he said. He could be lying. I mean, I was 9th, so...
Well, I can tell you from the Football Hipsters side of things, there's only one winner here, and yeah, you're listening to him. I'm delighted with my 19th place trophy. I shall polish it and shine it and keep it nice and sparkly for everyone to look at. 19th, delighted. However, Ross was only 3 points behind me after a terrible start. Ross really pulled it round. And who got the wooden spoon? Was it John in the end? Got the wooden spoon for finishing lowest. Tut 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 tut. We are going to try and find a fantasy league to play next season, so we will go again for the next season when we come back. And Jabroni, don't worry, we will get you a prize. We just have no idea what it is yet. So it might be an idea if you want to drop us a little line in the old DM box on Twitter with your details, and we'll see if we can find a prize in Tom's broom cupboard to send it on to you. We'll get Tom to nick something from uni or something so he can send to you. But yes, look out for that. And the final thing to plug before we go, and this is the final thing, we have one more special to bring you. Next Sunday, or this Sunday coming, as this might be, because this is recorded on a Monday. So July the 17th, I will be recording a special where my guests will be former interviewees. We've mentioned him already, Simon Collins, who, for those who don't know, is a young budding journalist who's written many pieces for a variety of big name papers in the UK. Ali Beg, who we've had of an interview previously as well, who is working for beIN Sports in Qatar. And Rich Allen, who we've had on many times before, who's our kind of go-to guy for all things Liga and French, part of the French Football Weekly crew, will also be joining us. And between the four of us, we're going to attempt to pick our team of the tournament. So we're all going to have a vote for a player of each position in a 4-2-3-1 formation. And hopefully we'll all agree between us to pick a team of the tournament. So do look out for that. We're recording Sunday night, and we're hoping we'll get it out that night, if not Monday morning. So do keep it tuned for that. But other than that, that's it for us for the summer. We're going to put our feet up and take a break. We may well be back before the season. Well, we will be back before the season to do some preview shows. We have got the lovely Mina Rizuki is going to join myself and John to do a Serie A preview. No doubt I'll drag Rich on to talk France with me. I'm sure Tom will be able to pull somebody in from Spain. I imagine, John. Tom, you'll go back to John, won't you, John Driscoll, hopefully?
If he's not at truck festivals, yep.
Absolutely. And I'm sure Drew will be able to find somebody to talk a little German as well. So do tune in for that. We might do a transfer pod as well, but we'll see what the summer brings. But until then, put your feet up. The football is done for a couple of weeks, but before you know it, we will be back in your ears with more podcasting goodness.
The Olympics podcast.
Oh, no, I can confirm here and now that ain't happening. Now, I'm not going to leave you with the immortal words tonight. I'm going to leave you with the immortal words of the absent Mr. John Welsh. I'm just going to leave you with simply this quote: defence and tactics will always win over superstar names and silly haircuts. We have been the Football Hipsters. This has been the Football Hipsters podcast, and we'll leave you with the knowledge that Portugal are your European champions. Thank you for listening all summer. Have a good break, and we'll be back very soon.
A match winner. Is this the moment? It is. Divock Origi. There and now Pillar, and they now have the breakthrough. Bale. to great effort. Oh my word, what a goal by Gareth Bale!